Well, welcome everybody. We have a few announcements. I saw many of you at the SS today, which was a very long meeting. So we're all a little frazzled today. You'll know why. Um, the first announcement we have is the ICC, the Integrated Community Collaborative, they have their cafecitos, and they are having Secretary Dr. Mark Ghaly come and speak with them. So if you remember, we've been talking a little bit about the master plan. And the master plan, um, it Judy, I'm going to have you jump in and explain what the master plan is because I always do a terrible job of it.
So, um, so the master plan, I think we've talked about it here in the past, but the master plan is a process that the state of California is conducting, particularly out of the Health and Human Services Agency, which is the agency above DDS. So there's the regional centers, then there's DDS, then there's the Health and Human Services Agency, and then there's the governor. That's kind of the way it works. And so the Secretary of Health and Human Services has engaged in a master planning process for developmental services. And they're going to be looking at the entire system, but not just the DD system, but the system in its relationship to Medi-Cal, in its relationship to Department of Rehabilitation, school districts, all the other resources that people can get. And it's a very long process. It's going to end sometime in March of next year. We've talked about this before, but speaking of the Cafecito, so the Integrated Community Collaborative is a organization that provides direct support for families and individuals to help them access services, both in the regional center system as well as the other systems. And they're very excited that tomorrow night they are hosting Secretary Dr. Mark Ghaly and Victor Duron, who's the head of the master plan. It is honestly, it's primarily for the Latino community. So we encourage Latinos to attend. I'm not Latino and I'm going, but I'm hoping that they hear from all of us about solutions. What the secretary is looking for is not just complaining, because he has heard the complaints. He knows we have concerns. He wants solutions. So if you're going to come prepared to say, I have this problem, I have this concern, and here is one way to fix it. I know that not everybody has the solutions. So if you don't have solutions to share, it's okay, but it might be really interesting to listen in on the program. And I believe that a lot of it's going to be in English with Spanish interpretation, but there will be a section that's in Spanish with English interpretation.
So they were able to see the flyers while you were speaking, and the links are in the chat if you're interested in attending. The next thing we want to announce is we have a brand new monthly meeting that we're going to be holding here at Disability Voices United. And Tina is going to be hosting it. Tina, do you want to announce and talk a little bit about your meeting?
Sure. I would love to. It's going to be called I Get to Choose, and we're going to help people figure out how you can be the person who gets to choose, because that's self-determination program, and we're going to talk all about it and learn how to do it together.
Awesome. And so the idea is this is a meeting for people who are brand new to self-determination. They've never heard of it, and they want to get ideas and kind of just learn what is self-determination. And we thought the best people to introduce it are the participants in it. And so it'll be a monthly meeting. The first Friday from noon to 1. And it's just for an hour, and we're going to have different speakers come and just tell their stories about what self-determination looks like. So if you are new to self-determination, please join us. If you have somebody who says, what is self-determination? please share this with them and link and have them come and join us. We'll have lots of time for questions. So if somebody's brand new to it, it's a great place to go. And so the last thing we need to talk about is we had 3 directives come out. I'm not going to go into huge details about the directive because we want to make sure we've got time for the open discussion and open questions. The directives are at the DDS website. We'll put the link down in the chat. So if you have any problems finding it. Now, unfortunately, DDS has not put them up in Spanish or other languages yet. So keep an eye out to, oh, go ahead.
Literally, right this second, we just got an email saying that they came up in different languages. Literally at 4:34 p.m.
Awesome, because I checked right before we came on, and so that is great news. So they are in all the languages, so you can go to that site to, I know, Oscar put perfect timing, good timing, right? So go and read them. The key one is the July 2nd one, and it's something that here at DVU we have been advocating for a very long time, and it is so independent facilitators do not need to become vendored 099. And our concerns over that was that it limited participant choice of who could be their independent facilitator, which they call self-directed supports for that transition. When you're transitioning in to self-determination, can now be done under participant directed services, which means it can be done non-vendored. So you can pick, the participants can choose who they want to support them through the transition in. So yay, this is an exciting piece. They also expanded the initial, if you're in now, you may have used way early on when we were all called independent facilitators, there was $2,500 available to help you transition in. That had gone away in the last directives. They extended it. So now people can continue to use that initial $2,500 through the end of this year. So through December of this year. So that kind of helps people who were midway through. This really just kind of impacts how independent facilitators invoice. So it doesn't impact participants that much, other than the fact that I do want to remind participants, you should not be paying for independent facilitation out of pocket for this transition. This is all of your supports are paid for by the regional center. So for the person-centered plan, through your supported self-directed supports are all covered by the regional center. Then we have 2 other quick announcements. One is we have some local voluntary advisory committees who put out what they call RFPs, which are requests for proposals. And that's when they are spending their money and they are looking, they have specific things they're working on and would like somebody to provide these services for the committee. And we have Westside has asked that we announce that they do have a request for proposal out. We're going to put the link in the chat. So if you are a vendor and you're interested in providing services for the Westside Local Volunteer Advisory Committee, please go and look at those proposals and see if there's something you would like to put in there. GGRC, Golden Gate Regional Center, also has let us know that they have requests for proposals out, and we will put their link in the chat as well. So again, vendors, please go take a look at them and see if you're interested in doing any of those services. And I think that was all of our announcements. Oh, Judy has an announcement.
I just got hot off the press the presentation by DDS at today's statewide self-determination advisory committee. So I'm going to show you all just a few data points because we like to always share. Here we go. Okay, so as of May 31st, there were 4,638 people in the SDP. And I'll put this in the chat afterwards, the whole thing. And if you want to see it, I don't like this chart. I don't know why they love to do that chart. But here's the raw numbers by regional center. So you'll see that San Diego Regional Center actually had a giant burst. They're up to 538. Now, they are the second largest regional center in the state. So they should have big numbers, but I think they have really brought in a lot of new people recently. So you should know that the way that they do this is that on the left side, if you see my cursor, that's the smallest regional centers in the state. And then IRC, an Inland Regional Center, is the biggest by far. I think they have over 50,000 consumers versus Redwood Coast, which is like 5,000 or 7,000 consumers. So theoretically, IRC should have 10 times as many as Redwood Coast, which they don't, but neither of those regional centers are doing well. This is another important one, is to look at the percentage. I don't know why they call it status 2, but basically what that means is people who are over the age of 3 in the regional center system, because status 2 is not early intervention. It's not the early start children. And so you'll see that my regional center and Connie and Harvey's regional center, West Side, is by far at the highest percentage, even though it's a piddly amount, 3.86% is still a small percentage. It's still significantly higher than all the other regional centers, with Frank Lanterman, which is Christiana's regional center, and Far Northern Regional Center coming in second. And then we have this whole big group of regional centers that are kind of in the 1.5% or so range. And then there are the really poorly performing regional centers. And they include North Bay, Tri-Counties, which is very surprising to me because they were one of the pilot regional centers that have had self-determination since the late 1990s. Valley Mountain Regional Center not doing well, South Central really poorly, and Central Valley pretty not great, and of course IRC. And so we have asked DDS in the past, what are you doing about these regional centers where things are not going well? And they never have an answer. Like they're not spending any energy or time on the lower performing regional centers. So obviously that's a concern. So then let's talk about by race and ethnicity. So this has not moved at all in years. You see that Asians have higher amounts. So the orange is that Asians are 10% of the total regional center population, but they're 16% of the self-determination program. African Americans are 9% of the community, of the regional center community, and 6% of the SDP. So they are under enrolled. Hispanic Latinos are obviously the least enrolled by percentage, because they are 40% of the population and only 20% of the SDP. And you see the whites are very, very over enrolled. The other category, which is a weird category that we don't even know what it means and who they are. And by the way, within the next year or two, that category will not exist anymore. But they're kind of even. So obviously that is, we really, really need to be targeting the Latino community. They also have by language, so it's not surprising that English is over enrolled. And that Spanish is quite under enrolled. These are small populations here, but it does look like the Korean community, Go Korean SDP Network, has done a great job of getting folks in, as well as the Chinese speaking community. And this is by age. So these are children that are obviously, we're seeing a lot of under enrollment because Latinos tend to have younger children than whites. So there's a lot of under enrollment there. And then here as adults, we're also seeing significant race and ethnic disparities here. So that is, and I'll put this in the chat so everybody can peruse this.
So wonderful. We now can open the floor to questions. We already have a couple in the chat. Please feel free to raise your hand. And what we'll do is we'll alternate between raised hands and questions in the chat. So I'm going to start with the first question, which was in the chat by Wang Ling Roth at 438, asked, does the IF, the independent facilitator, still need to be certified? E.g., can dad be the independent facilitator? You still, in order to be paid as an independent facilitator, you have to have some sort of training in independent facilitation and in the Lanterman Act. Those are requirements of the law. But there are lots of opportunities for training to do that. And there are many regional centers who are providing the training or helping provide providing us assistance and paying for the training. So check with your local volunteer advisory committee and see if they are offering it. So I think that's a good place to start. But yes, you do need to have some sort of training. Now, it's not a certification yet. So right now they're working on creating a certification, but we don't expect that to be out until next year. Oh, Tina, go ahead.
I just wanted to note that if dad decides to be the IF, he should be very much aware that he can't be the IF and a paid staff person at the same time.
Yes, you can. If you were an independent facilitator, you can only provide that service. You can't provide anything else. So do definitely be aware of that. Good, excellent point, Tina. Thank you. The next question we have is from Jacqueline at 440. She said, what if IFs have $1,000 invoices already submitted to RC for person-centered plan writing? Can those be retracted and submitted at $2,500? No, because you can't retroactively do it. And the $2,500 was not just for person-centered plan writing. That was for person-centered plan writing and transition into the program. So you would need to provide the service all the way through. So it continues to be $1,000 for person-centered plan and the balance for self-directed supports. And again, remember, anytime anything changes, it's not retroactive. So you kind of have to stick with what you were at the time that you did it. So you couldn't bill anything prior to this coming in. So keep that in mind. You guys are very quiet today. Nobody has their hands up. Did you all get tired during the SS stack? Okay. Oh, Debbie, you said that you weren't able to raise your hand. Go ahead and, oh, there you are. We see you, Debbie. We're going to ask you to unmute.
I don't know. It's just like disappeared, and I can see under the more buttons, there's something called reactions, but there's nothing that says raise your hand. So anyway, raised hand. I have a situation. I wrote to Judy, and I also wrote to Dave Grady just to see if anybody knows anything about this. My son's been in SDP. We're going into year 2 starting July 1st. And so we just got everything kind of almost settled, the spending plan signed, et cetera, et cetera. I'm cleaning up some signatures on things with the regional center, which we're with San Andreas. And one of the sets of papers that they sent our way was kind of a clumsily copied. I can't tell where they came from. There's different page numbers on them. It's kind of funny, but it's asking us to. We have 4 vendors that are actually also vendorized in the traditional system. I'm assuming that they are HCBS compliant, final rule compliant because of that. And we're being asked to spend time to go out, get this paperwork to them, have them sign it, and then we have to sign it that they are HCBS compliant. And I'm thinking to myself, this is stupid. It's a stupid waste of my time. And if anybody needs that kind of signature information, it's probably the FMS in the agreements that we now have to have, that these service providers are going to be able to provide HCBS compliant services. So I just like any input that anybody's got on that or their experience with this kind of request for signatures.
I will tell you, unfortunately, I've heard this at other regional centers, and they will ask for this kind of approval on everything, like a local bowling alley. And it's like, I don't know how much more HCBS compliant you could be than a local community, program. I would recommend reaching out to the ombudsperson's office and let them know that this is going on. Whether they can resolve it or not, it's still really important that they're aware that it's going on. So that would be the part that I would start with. And what I kind of, when I was doing it, running into it, it really got down to how close were we to the time that we needed to renew, of just doing it just because we didn't want to run out of time. Unfortunately, so that's the worst but best recommendation I can make.
I definitely will do that. I'm still going to hold out signing it because I have a feeling I'll figure this out in the next day or so, maybe, that all of the spending plan, everything's been signed. The standard format of the IPP has been signed by me. I don't know if they've signed it yet or not, but these are like the extra papers that tend to come along, with the IPP process. I don't even know if they're really part of an IPP. So that's it. But my major problem with it is these are all vendored service providers already in the traditional system. This is a terrible waste of time and resources to go after this. And what they did say in the verbiage of it is if you have service provided by a service vendor that provides services to other people with developmental disabilities, like in a group, that seemed to be what they wanted on this. So how they got to bowling alley, I don't even know why that would fit the description. Are they all using the same verbiage? Who knows? Anyway, I'm enough complaining. Thank you.
No, but thanks for bringing it to our attention, because it is, as we hear this and we're hearing it come from a couple different regional centers, and, it gets on our radar. So it's,
sorry, I'll do one more comment. It seems to me that if the regional center really wants to make sure that this is happening, they need to involve the financial management system, because they're the ones paying the bill. So if they don't know in an agreement with the people they're paying that they are HCBS compliant, it's messed up from the start. So if they're out of the loop of that, is what I'm trying to say. That's their responsibility to make sure they're paying the bill to the right people.
exactly. Well, and I wonder, is if it might be an old policy, because, they were kind of not, the regional center kind of had that grace period that they didn't have to catch up, and that's passed now. So all of their vendors need to be HCBS compliant. So I'm wondering if maybe it's just like they're slow to update their process.
A good question. I did ask one of the vendors that I know pretty well, and she says, oh, they've signed things in the past, and actually in the last few months, they actually had somebody that came by from the regional center that did some kind of check to see if they're compliant. Whatever that consists of is not exactly clear to me, but anyway, so at least the regional center seems to be engaged in making sure they've done something already regarding their traditional service people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, am I going to say it wrong? Rushing?
Yes, Rasheen. Hi. My question may be more of for an IF, I don't know. So my daughter, who is in the second year of SDP, she had some money in her budget for employment support, but she tried to get a job and she didn't work out. So she has this money in for employment, but since she's not using it, I want to move the money from that category to a different category. And I want to know what is involved? How do I move it? And then does regional center have to approve it? If you can tell me about the timeline.
That's a great question. And so there's a few kind of things in there that would make it easier or harder to move. So if you want to move the money to something that already exists in your spending plan, and it's the same service code, you should be able to move it no problem within your FMS. Don't need any approvals or anything, right? Just send an updated spending plan to your FMS, let them know. If you want to move it between service codes, then you will need to let your regional center know, because what will have to happen is they have to close those two service codes and then reopen them. So and it takes a bit of time. So you would send an updated spending plan to both your financial management service and the regional center, say, I want to move these funds, and they will let you know when. And usually you have to follow up a couple times and follow up with your FMS, say, did it come through? Is it ready? So it does take a little follow-up piece. Now, if you want to move into something that doesn't exist yet, you want to have a new thing, then you're going to have to actually have a meeting and say, we want to add something. There's been a change in circumstance. We want to add a new service or whatever, and then I want to move this money to that. So you would need to have a meeting if you want to move to something that doesn't exist on your spending plan at all. And that, as far as timelines go, that would be the longest timeline of, it's kind of so. But
Can I add something somewhat related to what you've been just saying, Christiana? So I wanted everybody to know that all of these complicated processes that Christiana was just mentioning, we want to get rid of most of them. And the way that we want to get rid of it is through legislation that has been co-sponsored by Disability Voices United and the Integrated Community Collaborative. And it's called Senate Bill 1281. If you've ever come to any of our SDP Connects, you will have heard about it, and we'll put some information in the chat about it. But we want to let you know that the bill is in danger, is in serious danger right now. The State Department of Developmental Services put some really significant costs on the bill that we don't at all agree with. But that's a way that a bill dies, is you put a cost on it and then it dies. And we're very, very frustrated. So we're going to be reaching out to all of you who have gone to our SDP Connects in the past and encourage you to reach out to DDS, to the governor, and to the legislature to say that we need to break down the barriers to the SDP, and that we basically, if the bill does not get out of what's called the Appropriations Committee next month in August, the bill dies, and we will have to start from scratch next year. And so we're extremely frustrated about where things are. We think that our bill makes a lot of sense and will actually end up saving the state money because it reduces wait times and processes and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be getting back to you with more information on that as things progress.
I think the frustration too is really that we have so much support. We even had ARCA support this bill. We had Disability Rights California, SCDD, Financial Management Services, all of you. There was just such an independent facilitators. So there was just so much support for it. It's very frustrating to us that DDS would do this, and we're hoping to keep it going. So we will call on you when we need your assistance, and we know you guys are always so great about coming out and helping when we need it. And I can give you a little example of one of the things in that bill that would relate to what Rasheen just had asked, is that one of the things in that bill would reduce the number of those purchase of services, meaning it would be easier, quicker, faster to move money in your spending plan. And those are the kind of things that we think are so important for self-determination right now. So we have a question from Nancy Crocker at 448. We requested SDP funds to pay for professional services, which may include attorney assistance to assist with applying for SSDI as a disabled adult child and to set up a special needs trust. We were told that RC doesn't pay for legal fees and were denied. Has anyone been successful in getting SDP to cover attorney's fees? Oh, Nancy, this is one of those things that a couple years ago, I would say Yes, they'll cover special needs trusts. They will, those kind of pieces. In the meantime, I will say at this point, it depends on your regional center. Some of them will cover them and some of them won't. But I will make an argument that if you read the definition of independent facilitator services, in there is advocacy for generic resources. And I think that you could absolutely argue, especially for the assistance with the SSDI, that this is advocacy for a generic resource. Um, can we, is it going to be an easy sell? Or are you going to have to really move your regional center? It's a tough one. And we haven't had any direction from DDS about this. So it is different at every regional center, whether they'll cover it. Susan, you have your hand up.
I do. Thank you. I understand that SDP must be cost neutral, but when we talk about significant barriers, and this I even think is almost discriminatory, for those consumers who don't have a parent, someone in their circle of support who can, and they're not capable of doing this on their own, it seems to me that they have no opportunity to participate in SDP. And I wonder if there has been any talk or any movement, if there has been talk on looking at that. And again, I know the cost neutral piece means that you shouldn't increase the budget for IF services, but this is truly limiting for some people or eliminating for some people. And I wonder if there's any way to make something change with regard to that for someone who does not have those advocates who can take the time. And imagine, for those of you who do SDP for your, adult children or whatever, having to use $100 of each of your hours taking out of the services that they would get because of that cost neutral requirement. Does that make sense?
100%. And I hear you. And again, it's something as IFs we are very concerned about. When you were working on a spending plan, making, when I'm doing it, I'm always saying, hey, I want to make sure that you got all the services that you need before we even think about what's going to come out for me. But we also know that for a lot of people, you need this service. It's a needed service. And so there is, and the concern, especially, and I think a lot about it for my son, of what happens when I'm gone. Who's going to be able to, he couldn't manage this program on his own. And so who would be that person? So it is, Susan, 100% on our radar of things that I am thinking about and we are talking about. But I don't have an answer for you yet of how it would, what it would look like or how it would happen. But thank you for bringing it up, and it is something that we do think about, of making sure that people are getting the assistance. Not only, I mean, we have the combination, right? We've got the combination of making the program simpler, but then also helping the people today who need the help and the assistance and the advocacy. So it's yeah, I think about it a lot. Maribel at 450 asked, at RCRC, we've never been told about self-determination, and the community became aware of it when we attended an ICC training. The saddest thing is that the clients of the Hispanic community for many years grew up without services, because not even the coordinators told you that there were services. Now our children have services thanks to ICC, and it's been difficult to obtain a pittance of services. I think, Mari, that is, you hit on a few really key things here. One of the great things about self-determination is that nobody in self-determination has what we call no POS, no services. And this is one of the things that is a huge concern in the traditional system, are how many people, and especially our people, Latinos, who do not have services. We call them low to no POS. So in that sense, we are seeing that self-determination can level that playing field a little bit. Unfortunately, like you're saying, it's not being offered to our community. So when you go back and think about the chart that Judy shared at the beginning of why is there this huge disparity? Well, part of it is like you said, nobody at Regional Center offered it to you. You found out through ICC. And so, um, outreach is such a big, important thing. And so I think reaching out to those local volunteer advisory committees and making sure that they are doing outreach to your communities is so important. So they have money to spend to do outreach. And so do reach out to them, and word of mouth. I think that I hear a lot of times self-determination program is the best kept secret. Probably depends who you're talking to on the day of how difficult a day they're having. But what I do know is that I don't know a single person in self-determination program who would give it up. Although there are many a day that we will be very frustrated at how difficult it's being that day. So we need to fix that. We need to make it more accessible and easy for everybody. And Mari, I think that's such a great point you made. Thank you. Miriam, your hand is up next.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I don't know if it was mentioned before, but there is a new directive that came out July 8th about goods and services. Can you say something about that one, please?
Oh, let me see. I'll have to see if I even remember which one that was. Hold on, I'm looking at it. Goods and services. July 8th, you're saying?
Yes.
I don't have one on the goods and services. I've got one. I've got June 14th, July 1st, and July 2nd. I haven't
I got
seen
it today. It was
Oh,
emailed to
I
me
haven't
today.
seen it yet.
Oh, okay. Well,
There we go.
There's
Well, thank
two.
you. Share it with me and I will read through it. Thanks,
Okay,
Miriam. You're awesome.
I'm on my phone. I don't know. I'll try to find it.
Okay.
I'll post it if I can.
Oh,
Thank
awesome.
you.
We'll read it through. And again, we do have a plan to do a connect, and we're going to talk about the directives in more detail. Oh, but that reminds me, I should have shared that DDS is having meetings on the most recent directives, and we will put the links for those meetings. There's two meetings that were happening. One was for the financial management services and independent facilitators. And then there's another meeting, which is going to be in Spanish and English for everybody else. Lori Walker answered. See, I knew Lori would be on this. She said, it just updates the goods and services due to adding coordinated career pathways outside of the budget. Okay. I thought they did that in an earlier one. Didn't that happen in an earlier one? Huh. Okay. She said yes. There we go. Thanks, Miriam and Lori. You guys are awesome. Hold on, I've lost my list of questions here. Luz Divina Solano at 450 asked, what is the process to become an independent facilitator and where can I register? So there are a few different independent facilitator trainings out there right now. I know that also some regional center local volunteer advisory committees are paying for independent facilitator training. So you might want to start with looking at your local volunteer advisory committee and see if they are offering any training. There are ones that cost money that you have to pay for, and then there are ones that are free, and so that you kind of can pick. And again, everybody learns differently, so I wouldn't say that there's one that's the perfect one. There are ones that are kind of in person that you can talk with people and you're part of a group that does it, and then there are ones that are all video. So you'll have to pick the one that kind of works best for you and how you learn. So I hope that helps. We also kind of hit on it a little bit earlier that the Department of Developmental Services is also in the process of creating a certification for independent facilitators that they will have a class, that we will all have a class we have to take to get the certification, but it isn't created yet. And so at some point, probably starting next year, independent facilitators will need to take that certification as well. So keep that in mind. And I hope that answered your question for independent facilitators. Miriam, is your hand up from before? Possibly, I think. Rushi, did you have another question?
Hi. Yes, I have a question along the legal matter like you touched before. So I have a teen. We struggled with the school system, and eventually we are at a very good place thanks to the SDP program and all the other things we did along with. And we are here for like last 10 years, 11 years now. And also my question is like, I have a teen who is motivated, ready, who's in a robust program, doing well, but they would not be able to work for next 5 to 6 years because of the visa restrictions. So and I tried like many doors, but I tried to reach out to DOR. They said that even they would not be able to help anybody who does not have a work permit or so I don't know what to do, because he will lose internships. He could not in like, and we are in a queue of like 125 years, so to get to where we should be. So I am looking for any doors I can reach out to.
Ooh, that's a good one. So I mean, the good news is with self-determination, if DOR cannot help you, then you can use your self-determination money towards employment supports. But I think that you might have some of those barriers, no matter what, with that status. So again, so there's, how old did you say he was? Is he out of school or is he still in school? Oh, can Rushi unmute again?
Can you raise your hand again so I can find you, please?
Oh, hold on. I see her. Okay, there we go. I could ask you to unmute. There you go. Sorry about that.
No worries. He's 15, so still in school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't qualify for paid internship program anyway, because he's too young. So I would say that I would so did they also denied workability?
Yes.
Okay. So then I might look at some supports through employment, or even kind of doing it on your own. Meaning if like he needs a job coach, go out and find those volunteer opportunities for him and then provide the supports that he needs through your self-determination program is kind of how I might look at it.
Right. But like he strongly feels that he's being marginalized or like not given an opportunity, like his friends will be working or doing the things that he can do. So like any legal advice I can get, any like place I can look into for like for changing his like status or something.
Oh, that I don't have an idea for, or Judy, do you have an idea of legal advice for
I'm
employment status?
embarrassed to say that I've been really focused on getting these directives into the
Oh.
chat. So I've been listening very well. Sorry.
So
maybe someone else does.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, again, if there's anybody here, we love to have anybody jump in and participate. Certainly, I don't always know when I make mistakes, so I'm the first one to admit it. So if anybody has any info on it, please jump into the chat or raise your hand and let Rushi know that either you can support or you have an idea of how to support. That would be really helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. So Bob Kokanda at 4:53 asked, can anyone speak to how the general SD supports through participant-directed services are paid through an FMS will work? Absolutely. So it's going to be extremely similar to how 099 works. In fact, to make it really confusing, it is a subcategory of 099. But the process is going to be exactly the same. So you'll go to your service coordinator and say, I'm transitioning into self-determination program. I need self-directed supports, and determine you have up to 40 hours. So whoever you've picked will say, I need 30 hours, or we think we're going to need 40, or whatever. They'll kind of give an estimate of hours they think, in which case they will create a addendum to your current IPP, because remember, you're in the traditional system still. And then they will send that to the financial management service and send their POS, which is the kind of authorization for hours. And the independent facilitator will be paid through that financial management service. So really the only difference is who you're being paid by as an independent facilitator. Instead of doing it in e-billing, you're going to be paid through a financial management service. You're going to have to do this similar invoicing. Your invoicing will look exactly the same. So hopefully that answered that question. Sandra, how are you doing? Go ahead.
I'm doing well, thanks. So yeah, the statewide advisory committee for self-determination today was very interesting. And in a lot of ways, I'm hopeful that some people will start to listen. So one of the things that I keep coming across socially on social media, and I'm hoping maybe, if DVU can't do this or doesn't have the space or the spoons to do it. So what we see socially a lot is people asking questions about what their independent facilitator should and should not be able to do for them. And then we'll see, well, a good independent facilitator should be able to do all these magical things. And so the independent facilitator trainings for the most part, and I've been through a few different ones, and depending on who the trainer is, there's always good information. I'd never walk away not learning anything. But for a recipient of services from an independent facilitator, I think there's a lot lacking. And there's a lot of jockeying for position with the independent facilitators who are still willing to continue to serve with the environment the way it is, with not getting paid well, waiting a long time to get paid once you're finally on somebody's budget or spending plan. So there's a lot of, trying to retain the business that you develop as an independent facilitator. But I think there needs to be, from a person receiving services point of view, this is what your independent facilitator can do for you. This is what your independent facilitator is supposed to be doing in collaboration with the regional center to keep your whole program and process and plan moving smoothly. I think there's a lot of not understanding that part on the part of family members and actual participants. I went through a whole lot of stuff when the 099 was first starting, and I almost started working with somebody, and I learned enough to know that independent facilitator is not what I want to be. Because I felt like it took away from what I really wanted to do. And I think some of the role of the independent facilitator kind of ties their hands a bit from what they really like to be able to do, but this is what they have to do to make a person's process go the way it needs to. On the other hand, we keep hearing, well, your service coordinator can be your independent facilitator. And I think that there are some things that aren't accurate about that, because there's some things that the service coordinator is not allowed to do that people aren't aware of. And even when I've talked to my son's service coordinator about, but what about this? You know, so this hourly person gets paid this wage, but you're not allowed to negotiate that. And they're just like, oh, I don't know about that. But I think that needs to be made clear that these are the roles, these are what they can do, these are the limitations. And I also think as this program grows and things start to straighten out, that there's space for a kind of helper that isn't an independent facilitator that can take care of things that people hope their independent facilitator can do that can't. And I wouldn't know what even to call that or what service code that would be under. I'm going to post in the chat. There's still a video up that was done by the Lanterman Regional Center that in the ticker tape, it has specific language quoted from the code that says your service coordinator can't do this, can't negotiate wages, but I can't find that specific wording anymore. So it would be interesting to, I know you can't do it today, but to get a reply about this and see if there's a way to really spell that out for people, because we need bumper guards.
I agree. And so yes, there are limitations of what a service coordinator can do. They cannot negotiate rates and they can't go out and help you find services out in the community the same way an independent facilitator can, right? They can't be paid, which is a good thing if you don't have enough money, but they're very limited in what they really can, just time-wise, reality time-wise. They have very, very large caseloads. And so I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between saying your service coordinator could do this job and whether they really honestly could. Not that they wouldn't want to or couldn't try, but just don't think it's realistic. I also think that because this is an evolving program and that a lot of the independent facilitators have done this for a while, have taken on a lot of roles, and have kind of we're like the water. We just keep going around and making it work, right? Just trying to make it work. That at some point there are probably some things that we have picked up along the way that may not be independent facilitator roles. And so a lot of times what I will talk to with people is make sure you have the right person doing the right job. You pay independent facilitators a good salary based on their expertise, and they have to have expertise in like every generic resource and the regional center and the SDP program, so and all of the local resources. So you're paying for this expertise. So make sure that when you're paying for that, you're not paying somebody top dollar with that expertise to help you buy socks on a monthly basis or something off of, so kind of make sure you're hiring the right person for the right job, I think it is the key. Now, I'll tell you, with that said, depending where you live, people to help you do those other services may not exist. And the only people available are the independent facilitators to do this. So what's really important is I recommend to every independent facilitator and every participant, you need a service agreement that spells out what your independent facilitator will do for you. So you guys are on the same page. So because there are independent facilitators that do ongoing services that will kind of be managing your budget and doing everything for you. And then there are independent facilitators who don't do staffing, don't help with that piece. And, so you need to know specifically what agreement you're making with them. The other piece that I will also recommend, which Sandra kind of reminded me of, is independent facilitators can't bill for things they don't perform. So if in a contract you see something that says something like, if you cancel with me, there's a, $500 charge, they cannot do that. That's not okay. They can't, so watch what you're signing when you're signing an agreement, that you're not getting into a contract, right? That could get you in trouble. It shouldn't say something like, if the, if my hours exceed this, you have to pay out of pocket. They cannot do that because whenever you work for and you get paid with Medicaid dollars, that has to be the complete payment. So they should never be saying, anything has to come out of your pocket. So I agree with you, Sandra. It would be so great to have a training for participants of how to find an independent facilitator and taught by independent facilitators, because I think we all want it helps us all to be on the same page. So that was a very long answer. Sorry about that. I know there are IFs in the crowd too. If anybody wants to add to that, please, if you want to raise your hand or whatever, I'm happy to have other people jump in and participate here. So let's see. Our next question. Oops, hold on one second. I've lost my list of questions. Here we go. Susan at 4:53 said, "Are we going to get another meeting on the new DDS directives?" Yes. So not only will we do a connect on the DDS directives where we'll talk about it, you'll also have the one from DDS. Quite often we'll kind of wait till after the one from DDS, and then we kind of go in and fill in the blanks and see if there's still any questions that are pending. So hopefully that will answer that question. Wendy, would you like to unmute?
Thank you so much. I am a parent and I'm helping my son move towards self-determination. I'm putting it in vague terms because it has not been easy. And his largest unmet need is for behavioral services, and he has significant needs in that domain. And my question to all of you anywhere in the state is, does anyone have a suggestion about how to identify BCBAs who may be available to work independently as part of an SDP program?
You have to be careful, because if you're doing behavioral and ABA in self-determination, we still have to follow Title 17, which means if they need to work underneath BCBA,
Yes.
then you can't hire them as a behavioral person, right? If they don't have that supervision. So that was just kind of something I want to throw out there as something to be aware of.
Yes, the BCBA designs and directs the program for the staff's guidance, if you will.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So we're on the same page there. Good.
Thank you. But thank you for clarifying. I hope everyone can learn from every question.
Yes, yes. And so we have actually found BCBAs who will take self-determination program money. It's just one of those things, reaching out and asking them. Did you tell me generally where you are?
We're in the San Andreas Regional Center, so I'm in Santa Cruz County.
Okay. So are you working with an independent facilitator at all?
I'm trying to.
Okay. So I will say that is your go-to person, because and I often recommend people work with independent facilitators from their area, because they're the ones who know the local. If you can't, I mean, I know all areas don't have IFs that are available to them, but if you can find one, that is a really good resource. The other is local volunteer advisory committees, or if your regional center has a support group. This is where we find our greatest resources, is asking the other parents in self-determination at your regional center, because they're local. So kind of stretching out that circle of support is a great way to do it. Also, you can run an ad, like say, I'm looking for BCBAs, and this is what we'll pay, and this is how we're going to do it. Now, the other thing is it may not have to be a BCBA, because we can think outside the box. So what we'll see sometimes is that there are other ways to deal with behavioral issues, not necessarily ABA, that swimming, sometimes really decreases the stresses and the behaviors. Horseback riding, so there, or so finding the things that they love to do sometimes will also improve those behavior pieces.
Yeah, I really appreciate where you're going. I'm all over it. I've been running a supported living agency for his benefit for 15 years already. So I'm all about important 2 and 4. And he really needs behavioral support to be not strict ABA, but someone to observe carefully to help him better communicate and to help the staff read him
Yeah,
more quickly and more accurately.
yeah,
To help him.
yeah. And I think very well-trained staff is so key to that. It sounds like you were really on the right track. Like you're going down the right path here. Oops, hold on 1 second. You're muted. Let me unmute you.
Oh,
Oh, there we go.
okay. Thank you. I've put a lot of thought into this, but I'm having great difficulty finding BCBAs, and I don't know if that's a statewide problem, a national problem. Does anybody know? I mean, experienced BCBAs, not someone fresh out of school.
Yeah. I would say it's not just BCBAs. It's all, I think for one of the most common challenges for not only self-determination, but traditional services is finding employees right now. It's
Oh, yeah, that I'm aware of.
yeah.
I'm
So,
looking for a leader, like an executive trainer sort of person.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So
stick with it. I will
Mhm.
tell you that self-determination is worth it in the end. And I know as you're transitioning in, sometimes people are like, oh my gosh. But it for my son was absolutely life altering for him.
Mhm.
And the interesting piece for my son was, as we were able to get him the services that were much more appropriate for him, behaviors
Mhm.
decreased because he was doing what he loved, what he liked, and all those things. And so there is a good combination of
Mhm. Yeah. The tricky part is my son has very complex needs, medical needs, very complex communication needs. So I do hear you, and I agree I'm on the right track, but it's really hard to fit all the pieces together.
it is.
Yeah.
So I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And do come back if you have,
I will. Thanks so much.
Sure. Um, Melissa Jones at 455 asked, can we remove the 1% from our spending plans with GT Independence? Are they still charging clients this 1%? They have, oh gosh, I don't know the date off the top of my head. We haven't passed the date when it needs to be removed. So remember, the directive said that it was the employer burden directive that would have actually removed that. And the FMSs had to turn in a chart to their regional centers, their contracting regional center, breaking out how they do their employer burden, and then the regional centers had to send it to DDS. And last I heard from DDS, they were receiving them now, but I don't honestly remember what the deadline is. So when that deadline hits, then I'm assuming that 1% should come off. The other FMS that was doing it already removed theirs, which is nice to hear. So keeping our fingers crossed. And Melissa, thanks for staying on top of it. And if anybody hears anything about it being removed, let us know too, because we wanna stay in the loop. Angel, go ahead and unmute.
Hi, everybody. First time here on this forum. I really appreciate all the kind words and all the support. So I am not part of the SDP program yet. I actually heard through you guys through a legal counsel for my nephews that I've have full custody of. I've been working with the RC for the past 2 years. They've been placed with me. They've been pretty supportive as far as like in-home therapy, interventionist help. They've been pretty good with this, but it seems like now when I'm bridging over to like another part of the learning curve of the regional centers, which I think a lot of us have already come by. There's a lot of hardships, obviously. Whenever you want funds, they're just not there. Obviously, you know what I'm saying? And so my concern is with education, academics. I've been paying out of pocket for a learning center that's not on their vendor list. It's a non, you know what I'm saying? And these people are, it's a credential-based instructor program. And unfortunately, whatever they offer on their vendor list, they're not credential-based instructors. Unfortunately, they're just either volunteers or college students for a part-time job. And you're not getting the best support for the kids because we're trying to close a gap that's really, really difficult to close with disabilities, right? Everyone's well aware of that with our kids, you know, and they're doing really great now, but they denied my application for approval so they could help me with the funds, you know. And like I said, I just learned of this program and I'm already like loving it. I'm loving where this is going just by hearing everybody, by reading the comments, by reading more into it myself. Number one is, how do I register for the SDP program? Do I bring it up to the coordinator's attention? Is that the first step?
So your first step, and just so you know, there are many service coordinators that have never done self-determination program before, so they may not, your service
Yes.
may or may not have done it or heard of it. And so your first step is to do the orientation. And
Okay.
so we will put a link in the chat of the, to do that. There's State Council of what does DD stand for? State Council of Developmental Disabilities. It has an orientation that's online. You can also check your regional center if they have an orientation. And then you'll get a certificate after you attend that whole orientation, and you take that to your service coordinator and say,
Okay.
I'm interested in transitioning into self-determination program.
Okay.
And at that point, then you'll find some assistance. As you heard us talking about independent facilitators.
Yeah.
So in which case you will create a person-centered plan. And that's the funnest part of this whole thing. I'm kind of a secret out there. This is the best part, because this is where, instead of the like assessments that you've gotten in the past, right, which is all the list of the things they cannot do, it focuses on the things they want to do and how we help them to get there. And so that's where your self-determination starts from, which is such a different focus, right? And then you'll kind of continue on from there. So that's your first steps. I do want to tell you though, you have to be aware that in self-determination, these are it's the same funding source. These are Medi-Cal dollars. So we have similar limitations on what we can spend on, which means if anything with schooling, they're still the generic resource, which means the school would have to pay for it first. So if it's something with education, you may need a denial saying they won't pay for it, right?
Right. I'm pending for that right now, actually. I submitted for the written notice already.
There you go. So you're kind of, and you know, you'd have to do it in a traditional system too, either way.
Right.
Here's the interesting piece though. There may be things that, so your budget is going to be based on what they would have spent on you in the traditional system. So you're going to base that on traditional system services, right? And you're saying, you know, some of them aren't what you wanted or anyway, right? But then you take that dollar and you can spend it much more flexibly in the spending plan side. And on that side, depending what you call it, you have much more flexibility on the services that you can select, like the training program you're talking about. So tutoring, those kind of things are much easier to get in self-determination.
Right.
So
Right. Definitely. Okay. So I think that's the first step. I got to do the orientation, number one. Okay. Definitely. I really appreciate you guys' help on this. I have to get this started. It's really important. It's imperative these kids get a proper education and moving forward, you know.
Yeah.
We all know that. Yeah.
I will tell you, it's a little bit of an exercise in patience to get in.
Yes, I have learned that. I think everything. I mean, for me, like I said, I'm very close to adopting the boys already. So trust me, the patience part I've learned through DCFS and every other, you know, wall you could think that they put in front of you. So yeah, I have learned that a lot more patience in my life now for sure.
We're an adoptive family, believe me. You learn patience.
Yes,
the hard way.
Yeah, I didn't even think I had that kind of patience in me, to be honest with you, and they actually forced it upon me. Like, oh my God, a lot of prayers.
Yes. Well, we wish you the very best of luck, and you will get there, and come back if you get stuck or you need help.
I will. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Sherry asked at 4:57, I'm confused about this statement from the directive. The provider can provide services as soon as purchase of services authorizations from the regional center is available to the FMS. Okay, so let me kind of explain. I know they use such odd terminology, don't they? Like something so simple as they make it sound so difficult. What they're basically saying is the financial management service will be given what they call a purchase of service. Think of it like a line of credit. The regional center will send over to the financial management service and say, we have this amount, you can spend this amount of money on this. And as soon as the financial management service gets it, then they can provide the services. So kind of think about it like, well, if the financial management service doesn't have that authorization, then they can't pay for it yet. So they won't be able to pay for things until that authorization comes through. So I hope that put it in a little bit more simple terms of what that meant. So Mariana, go ahead.
Hi, hello everyone. I wanted to just say thank you for all the work that you guys have been doing and helping out with all the transitions for the independent facilitators. I know that you guys have been speaking for us. However, I'm in the same boat that Sandra mentioned in the beginning. Am a vendor. So I am a vendor of SDP clients that transitioned about 3 years ago. However, in that transition, I had a calling for helping out the independent as an independent facilitator for the Latino population because I've noticed that that was a big need. However, as I'm learning more about this IF position and it's been a struggle out there because again with all the requirements and the changes, it for me I was like I don't even think I want to do this anymore because I'm just like man it's hard. However, question is able to still be vendor and provide that service for the SDP clients that have been in the system and can be also an independent facilitator and help the new incomers. I know that you mentioned in the beginning of the meeting that unfortunately we can be put in the budget, which I understand it's a conflict of, services. So I again, I have to make a decision to myself. I'm also a BCABA, so I keep hearing a lot of families, asking about behavioral, and I'm actually really thinking of going back to school and getting my BCBA. And so that's another thing that I'm also, dealing with because I'm like, there's a need for that, there's a need for this, and my services is still, needed. I do toileting, I also do coping skills, I have a, sporting class. So there is just a lot that I know that needs to be done. However, I know that I'm going to be limited at one point. And so that's kind of like my question, like, what would be best, but can I do both?
So you could not do for one person, you couldn't provide multiple services. So if you were the independent facilitator, that's all you could do. Or if you were their BCBA or any of those things, so you can only do one at a time. For the independent facilitation piece, I will tell you of all the independent facilitators in here that we know, I want you to know that there are days that we're all like, holy cow, why do we do this? But then there are days where something goes so right, or you see, just the funnest for me are the rollover years, when you're going from year one to year two, and you get to look back and see all the things that have happened and how their lives change over, from year to year to year, and how great that is. And that's kind of our payment in a lot of ways. Probably not very financially rewarding, but that tends to be it. I really hope that as that certification comes in and as we go, that we keep describing self-determination program as building a plane in flight. And so the amount of changes and all that has made it difficult for everybody involved. It's hard for the financial management services. It's hard for the regional center, the service coordinators, and the participants. So we're really hoping that part of SB 1281 was asking for standardization and timelines and these kind of things, and trying to make this a simpler process for everybody involved. I will say, just from a personal note, of Latino community needs independent facilitators so badly. And so if you have any calling to it, I highly, encourage you to do that, because our community absolutely needs it. So
Yeah, I actually got involved as an independent facilitator because I'm transitioning my sister. And as I was exiting out of an SLS program, I'm a Westside client. Then I got involved with SDP in December, and then I was like, OMG, there's a need for this. So I'm currently helping around 12 families in the West Side area. And like I said, that I'm still there.
yeah. And I'll tell you, the payment, these things that changed in the directive initially are going to be hard adjustments for independent facilitators for the payment, but in the long run, our payments should get more timely and easier to deal with, because when you're doing either the 099 vendored or the 099 through the financial management service, you can bill as you go. So it used to be you had to get somebody transitioned in before you could even invoice, and then it would take 90 days to get paid. So you could have, people you started with a year ago and just getting paid. So now that you can bill as you go, that hopefully is going to lighten some of that stress. But yeah, and part of the directive also said independent facilitators have to be paid in a timely manner. Well, timely manner isn't a very clear definition, right? Timely to you could mean something very different to me. So there's definitely challenges for independent facilitators as a profession, but it is very rewarding work, I will say that.
Yeah, thank you. And I definitely see you guys all in action. And I also have joined the ICC program as well. And I see Elizabeth there. So I am like just memorized of how much work, you guys do. And so that's why I continue to just say, I'm going to continue. And like I said, I am very straightforward with my clients. And I say to them, I can do both. I can do your toilet training or your SLS or your adaptive skills. I could be an IF. So I am very transparent at the beginning. And so then I say, you guys have to make the decision. And then they think, and then they're like, okay, well, then I get another independent facilitator. So, so far it's been working that way. However, I do see the need in the Latino community. So I will be here, for a while. So I hope to learn a lot from you guys as well. And thank you.
Wonderful. So keep up the good work. Melissa Jones at 457 asked, can we discuss the fact that an RC is requesting progress notes for independent living services? Oh, Melissa makes me sigh. I know.
Can I answer this question?
Yes.
This is why we have to get our legislation passed. Because what we say in our legislation is that purchase of service policies. So there may be a policy in the traditional system that independent living services need to be reevaluated or reported on every 6 months. It depends on the regional center. That would not exist if we can get our law passed in the self-determination program. It's the same thing with all services. The reporting requirements, assessment requirements would be totally different in the SDP. So I know a lot of you have been so great about reaching out to us, reaching out to me personally or in the chat. We are going to get you information very soon. We're having some very important meetings tomorrow on the bill, and we'll understand our way forward and we'll get it out to everybody. But it is that's not an easy fix. If they require it in the traditional system, then regional centers are sometimes requiring it in the SDP too. And the only way to do that is to change the law or have DDS do the right thing. And since we've been waiting for DDS to do this and they haven't, we're just trying to change the law.
Assessments are a big thing, and we've talked a lot about it. And Judy, please feel free to jump in here. My personal feeling about assessments is the reason you need an assessment is because you're not there when the services are going on. So that's an external person who's going to review this. So they need this report to determine if it keeps going. Self-determination means we're hiring the person. So if the person's not doing a good job, we're going to let them go and switch services. So we don't really need these assessments to determine if they're doing a good job. And so that's really where I come from when it comes to self-determination, there's certain services I can understand if they're in your budget that we're going to have to do this, but for most of them, it really should just go away. But Melissa, you have your hand up. Did you want to respond to that, to jump in?
Yes. What's confusing to me is the way I always explain it is a client may be eligible for independent living. And so that service goes in their budget, but they don't use that money for independent living. They use it for, I don't know, taking a driver's ed. I mean, there might be a slight connection there, but how can you have progress notes that say you've been working on housekeeping and laundry and all those things if you didn't use the money for that service?
Right. Hence why, Melissa, we have to get our legislation passed, because DDS, we have been complaining about this for years, and DDS has not done anything. So that's why we're trying to get this law passed. It makes no sense. You are correct.
I will say, just on a you have to deal with it today basis, is I've had parents who will fill it out and say, here are the goals, the independent living goals, and here's what we're working on, and turn that in, and that was your progress notes. So again, it's not going to be from an ILS agency because we're not hiring one, so you don't have anybody to. So yeah, I have actually had parents or participants themselves, if they're running their program, say, this is how I'm working on it. These are the services that I'm using to meet that goal. So I know, annoying. Susan, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, happy 4th belated, everybody. I'd like to say something about how can we prevent independent facilitators stealing clients from other independent facilitator, because it happened to me. My client was good until we were done with the spending plan and the PCP, and we had the meeting. When the budget was approved already for the month of June 1st, he started being, calling me 4 times a day, asking me to order stuff from FMS. And then he would order, like, oh, he called and he would say, my appointment didn't go through. Can you follow up? I go, I'm not your secretary. I am your IF. I'm supposed to teach you to be self-sufficient. But then he said, no, I've spoken with another IF and she said, you're supposed to be doing this and that. And I go, I'm supposed to, help you to do it yourself. I will help you in some things, but I'm not going to babysit you because that's not the goal of an IF. And so,
Susan, I think you have a really good point in here, but that kind of what we talked about earlier is all the independent facilitators, we work differently. And so the key is to the participants need to find the IFs that work with to meet their needs. So like one of the things for me is I don't help people hire staff or manage staff. It's something that for me, it's too time consuming and I can't do a good job at it. So I really focus on transitions, rollovers, those kind of things. So people can have multiple independent facilitators if they want, but the participant chooses their independent facilitator. So there's nothing you can do to prevent them from saying, I don't want to work with you. I'm going to go work with somebody else. I will say on a professional level, it's very unprofessional for independent facilitators to be stealing other people's clients or bad-mouthing other independent facilitators. So I would be concerned about hiring somebody who did that to another independent facilitator. So, again, that's part of, we talk about the principles of, freedom, authority, responsibility, support, and confirmation is the participants have the freedom to move to whoever they want, and they have the authority to do that. And so I'm sorry that happened to you, and I'm sorry that, because I really think as far as independent facilitators go, believe me, there's so much work out there. We should all be working together and on the same page and supportive. And so I'm sorry that that happened to you and that occurred. Um, Josie at 457 said, I'm brand new with SDP. I've taken the orientation class online with IRC. What is my next step? Oh, great question, Josie. Let you take your certificate that you got from your orientation to your service coordinator and let them know that you took the orientation and you're ready to transition into self-determination program, and start looking for your support to help you create that person-centered plan. They're called independent facilitators, and we will put a link in the chat of, we don't endorse anybody, but there's a listing of all the independent facilitators. Also, I invite any independent facilitators in this group that provide services to Inland Regional Center. You can put your information in the chat as well. So yeah, you're going to start working on your person-centered plan. And then when you turn that in, then you'll start working on your budget. So Josie, good luck, and come back if you have any questions or get stuck with anything. Tamar, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. So my question is in relation to kind of self-determination as well as traditional services. So I'm also with Inland Regional Center, which is challenging. And Inland Regional Center does not offer, quote, behavioral respite. Instead, they offer what they call SIT services, special intensive training services, which I asked to be approved for. My child has very extreme behaviors where we were on the cusp of calling the police a few times. Anyway, it was denied, and their secondary rationale was, well, we don't actually have any service providers who can provide SIT services.
Oh dear.
Despite living in Riverside, the biggest area they cover. Anyway, so I took it to mediation. I said, it's denied. I'm transitioning to self-determination. This is an unmet need. But they said, oh no, to be cost neutral, because we can't cover it in traditional, we can't cover it in self-determination. They then said, because they don't have any service providers, they don't have anyone who can do a quote evaluation to determine if he would qualify for the services and how many hours he would qualify for. Because I guess with Inland Regional, instead of it just being like a 1-to-1 hour ratio, they kind of pick and choose how many hours they give for SITS behavioral respite. Do you have any ideas on where to go from here?
Did they give you a notice of action? Oops. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. I appealed it, and I'm in mediation for that right now. The mediator said that Inland Regional Center should then send one of their behavior people out to do an assessment. But I'm really apprehensive about that because they don't have any impetus to approve the service, because all it's going to do is add money to my budget. Like they've clearly stated they literally have they don't have any agencies who provide this service anymore.
Go ahead, Judy.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to go back to what you said at the beginning, and I understand the challenges that you are having with your child, and I just want to put out there that no one should ever call the police on their children, no matter what crisis you're in. It is a policy at DBU that we know that people do it because you have no other supports and services. And so that is a really good example of your regional center not providing you the support you need, that you would be that desperate. But I then want to say that it is the fact that a service is not available because there are no service providers is absolutely not a reason for a denial of a service in the traditional system or in the self-determination program. It is we have an entitlement to services in the state of California. So, in the traditional system, you'd have to sit and wait forever because you need to use a traditional provider. That's the whole reason people go into the self-determination program. So I really strongly encourage you to go through the entire fair hearing process, go all the way till the end in front of a judge. And I think this is a case that would be easily won before a judge if you prepared right. And I'm just noticing it's 6 o'clock, so I'll be quiet.
So thank you everybody so much for coming. Our next, hold on, let me think what our next Connect is going to be. We have a couple great ones coming up here. We have coming up. Oh, okay. Our next one on the 24th is going to be 3 new financial management services that are coming that have started here in California. And so you're going to meet Arch, Sentinel, 4, and Balance. And then the following one is going to be some new innovative, creative resources that are coming. So we have some exciting new ones coming up. Thank you everybody so much. Thank you for all of your questions. And we will see you at our next Connect. Thank you all.